This is Warrington Cemetery. It's my first visit here. I'm just going to have a walk around and explore it. Immediately there's a useful map here. We've come in at the main entrance at the top of the map. So on our left are going to be the non-conformist and then the Roman Catholic graves. And our right will be the C of E graves. Straight away we come to the memorial garden for those who died in the wars. The first thing we notice is the stones are of this granite material rather than the bright white stone that we see in a lot of these gardens. This is Hunter Sergeant C.A. Piddington of the Royal Army Medical Corps, died in 1919. One from the Australian Infantry, 31st Battalion, Mr. Cox, 1919, age 30. Next to him is another overseas recruit, the Royal Canadian Rifles, Private G. Ralph, 1919. I'm not going to go through all the names on these memorials. They will be listed on the internet on the CWGC site. But it's very carefully looked after. One here with a lady on top holding a cross. Doesn't appear to be an angel, at least she has no wings. What I do notice about it is on the base here are the symbols of the Freemasons, and this stone is to Thomas Williams. Rather different image here. Two cherubs or two young angels with looks like a bowl of water. Not quite sure what the significance is. Move down the stone, you see it's in loving memory of Gerald Harry, husband of Alice Sydenham. One here to David Chambers McFall, Brigadier Surgeon Lieutenant Colonel. It's a very detailed and elaborate scene here. Appears to be a female in bed. There's someone on their knees at the foot of the bed and four other people in the room. At the top it says, in affectionate remembrance of John Seddon Woods, and Margaret is on the left hand side and William Woods is on the right hand side. A little further up the walkway, in the centre here is this fountain and a memorial which is placed here to commemorate all who lie in unmarked graves. Some fairly intricate stonework here with the links of the chain around the cross and leading down to the anchor. And the memorial is to Captain Thomas Porter Tilling, lost in the Bay of Biscay 1910 with all crew numbering 99 of the SS Apona. The Apona was lost on her maiden voyage to India and she sank without trace. Believed she may have struck some wreckage in the sea, but no one quite knows why she went down. All hands were lost. According to the reports, 13 were white men and the remainder of the crew were coolies, Indians. One here, and I've picked this because of the bottom inscription. George Arthur Mills, Flight Lieutenant RAF, who was killed on a flying mission, 1964, age 28. A large lump of stone here with a young lady with flowing locks and something in her right hand, possibly flowers. Very well carved piece of stone. And the name at the bottom is Frances Hilda Jolly. One here to Eliza Ann Warren Burks, which says, after years of suffering, born with Christian resignation, she fell asleep in 1878. Sadly, some stones here being pushed over. This is part of the health and safety nonsense that we have. They have labels on them saying they're dangerous, and then they've been pushed over. It'd be almost as easy for them to make sure these weren't unsafe and staked properly. Just pushing them over like this by the health and safety zealots just makes it look like a building site or a bomb site. It's a great shame. This one here at the bottom has a mention of Sergeant William Ball, killed in action in 1945, aged 27, and he's buried in the British cemetery in the Reichsfeld forest in Germany. One here to Robert Marmaduke Riggle, founder member of the British Psychoanalytical Society, 1881 to 1970. We've got one here to Samuel Hunt, the Chief Constable of Warrington for 29 years. He died in 1902. We've got a tall obelisk here, and the inscription is to Alfred Hayden, late principal of the People's College in this town, who died in 1870, only aged 27 years. A magnificent piece of stonework here, and indications in the ground there would have been railings around it originally, but beautifully carved, and it's in memory of Mary Cropper. An unusual design in this memorial, with sort of logs with vines going up the outside of them, surrounding the stone, and John Robert and Elizabeth Ann Calvert and various members of their family. This is the memorial you will always hear about in Warrington Cemetery, the one they are most proud of. It's a beautifully done piece of stonework with the curtains opening and the profile of the man, George Formby, singer and comedian, died in 1921. And George Formby the son, who died in 1961. It is of course the second one, the one that died in 1961, that we all remember, with the gappy tooth smile, the ukulele, and songs like When I'm Cleaning Windows. Sadly, more examples of health and safety vandalism. Stones just pushed over and broken. Here we got the statue of a woman wearing a crown and with some beads and a cross, holding a young child in her arms. And down here we have Pray for the Soul of Maria, beloved wife of Giovanni Manfredi. This one's interesting, although it's worn. The image appears to be of a sheep at the top there. Bridget Murphy, James Ford. There's a row of stones here in a quite different style, a sort of Gothic type style. Unfortunately, the inscriptions haven't worn at all well. Just in this row here we have these rather unusual styles. Samuel Smith, who was the inspector of the County Borough of Warrington Police Force, which he served for 26 years. A couple more in this unusual style. Elizabeth Ann Sutton, died 1895. Part way down on this one is Private Arthur Horton, Manchester Regiment, LTMS, who was killed in action 1918, aged 21. And beneath that, the other son, Gunner Wilfred Houghton, died as a prisoner of war in Italy, 1942, aged 24. Scanning around this section, this is not a good piece of ground for a graveyard. You see the stones are all leaning sunken dips and hollows everywhere. The ground must be very soft, and it's not acting well as a graveyard. Interesting carving into the stone here. Again, it's an angel, and it's Walter, beloved husband of Hannah Hayes. Now here's a very elaborate one. We've got an angel here with a finger pointing upwards. She's got a wreath in her hand. But when we scan down, we see it's to Thomas Jolly, and we see a rugby ball, cricket bat, pads, and at the bottom it says, "This monument is erected by the Warrington Football, Cricket and Conservative Club's fellow workmen and friends." That's a very elaborate memorial for someone that died just aged 23. For the family historians, this stone will be an absolute godsend. It's got a cloth draped over the stone, but all the way down you've got Lithgows: John, Margaret, Martha, Jane, Arthur, Richard, Mary Ellen, John Joseph, Lucy, Constance, Herbert, John Frederick, and so on right the way down. Full of dates and information. This one's unusual. Inset into the stone is a thick black glass plate, and the inscription is in relief on the plate. John Locker, Harriet his wife, William their son. It's preserved very well. The last date on there seems to be 1926, and it's as fresh and as good as new. At the bottom of this one we have Second Lieutenant James Daintith, Royal Engineers, killed in action near Ypres, 1917, aged 29, and he's interned in France. Looking above that, interesting name for their daughter, Louisa Pharaoh. I've seen 3 or 4 of these large slab type tombs. I guess at least there's no chance that they'll be pushed over. This one is to John Needham. Here's a war grave, an unusual one, A. Cooper, Australian war worker. And above it says Australian Imperial Force. Another one for the family historian, Thomas Sykes, but listed all the way down is Clara, Leonard, Hartley, and so on right the way down. Lots of dates and information there. One here that stands above all others. We've seen this design before in other graveyards, but this particular one just doesn't seem to be quite balanced. It looks too thin. The 4 piers look too slender. The inscription is to John Warrington Wood, a sculptor, Professor di San Lucia, Rome, 1839-1886. Well, I think as a sculptor, you'd probably agree that the proportions of this monument just aren't quite right. Here's one to William Atherton. He died in 1907, but down on the front here we have this which says it was erected by the workmen of the engineering department of Dalham Forge in memory of William Atherton. There is an enormous slab of stone here. Looks as though it almost covers a small swimming pool or something. And climbing on top with some effort, it says sacred to the memory of Mary Stubbs. Surely she doesn't need a tomb quite that big. A memorial here to Private Wilfrid Lawson Clark, 4th South Lancs Regiment, aged 21, wounded in France and died at the Lord Derby Hospital, Winwick, in 1916. A tall, elegant one here to the Child's family, but sadly it has the yellow notice of condemnation on it. It will shortly be pushed over. Well, that's my visit to Warrington Cemetery. There are a number of interesting memorials here, but they do have a couple of problems. One is that the cemetery itself seems to be on very soft ground, So many of the graves are sunk and the stones are tipping over. But they also have a problem with their policy of pushing stones over if they're loose, rather than repairing them. Some graveyards are good at that, others have the policy that they have here of just shoving them over. We have to realise that graveyards are very important pieces of a social history of a town or a village or a city, and the destruction is wrong. If we can spend a lot of money on preserving old buildings, which we do, then we ought to really be preserving our graveyards. These are about the people, not just the fabric. Anyway, till next time, I've enjoyed my visit to Warrington here, and till the next time.